Hello and good morning, afternoon, or evening. However you're doing this, welcome to week 3 of publication design. And, you know, with the days off and some technical issues, things got a little disorganized, but I have everything together now. I had some technical issues with having a new version of InDesign, so I had to reload everything last week, but got it together. What I'm going to start to do is I have here most of the notes, and I'll send them in the weekly announcement, all the websites listed right here. So you have that. And here's what we got. For this week, our assignment is a simple flyer. It is all the information that you need for getting a student internship. 8.5 by 11, set up the page. We showed you how to do it last time. And, you know, use design basics, set up the page, do the typography, and put it together. I'll have examples in a second. I will show you though how to set up the page. File, new, document, inches, 8.5 by 11 tall. Now we think of the number of columns. I will lay this out on a 5-column grid. That allows, ta-da, come on. That allows me to put a text box for a headline here, or take that text box and move it across the page, move our text. Let us see text size. Type within it. Here is text size. See how small it is. Make it, ta-da. And then I can move that all up and down and around the page. That's kind of the assignment this week. Anyway, this is where we'll go. Anyway, so that's basic stuff on how to do the assignment. It should not be hard. Now, let's go back to the class and let's look at what the assignment is. Make an 8.5 by 11 flyer using the information from our to get an internship. Many of you will be looking for internships this summer, so this will be relevant. See all this information? Lots of information. You don't have to use all of it. Set up the flyer for this week. Anyway, but what we're really thinking about, no pictures, black and white, no color. This is what we're doing.
This is a cluster full of browsers who aren't buying. MailChimp uses
Typography. It's everywhere we look. In the books we read, on the websites we visit, even in everyday life, on street signs, bumper stickers, and product packaging. Simply put, typography is the style or appearance of text. It can also refer to the art of working with text, something you probably do all the time if you create documents or other projects for work, school, or yourself. Typography can be an intimidating subject, but it doesn't have to be. You only need to know a little and make a big difference in the stuff you do every day. So let's get started. First, some common types of fonts and what you need to know about them. Serif fonts have little strokes called serifs attached to the main part of the letter. Because of their classic look,
By the way, a font is again a certain style of type, but you get 4 type faces with most fonts. You get light, dark, italic, and italic, dark italic, all of which same font, 4 different faces.
they're a good choice for more traditional projects. They're also common in print publications, like magazines and newspapers. Sans serif fonts don't have that extra stroke, hence the name, which is French for without serif. This style is considered more clean and modern than serif fonts. Also, it tends to be easier to read on computer screens, including smartphones and tablets. Display fonts come in many different styles, like script, black letter, all caps, and just plain fancy. Because of their decorative nature, display fonts are best for small amounts of text. For example, titles and headers, and more graphic-heavy designs. In a way, fonts have their own language. They all have something to say beyond the words on the page. They can come across as casual or neutral, exotic or graphic. That's why it's important to think about your message and pick a font that fits. Some fonts come with extra baggage, like Comic Sans, Curls, Papyrus, and many more. There's nothing particularly wrong with these fonts. They just have a certain reputation for being outdated and overused. If you find yourself tempted by them, think twice and consider using something else. There are many fonts with a similar look and feel that are less likely to detract from your message. When deciding which fonts to use, less is more. It's best to limit yourself to 1 or 2 per project.
Yep, see 2 different fonts, and this is bold. You can make this lighter bold, 1 for headlines, 1 for body copy. So you know implicitly this is a headline, that's body copy, without even reading what the font is.
If you need more contrast, try repeating one of your fonts in a different size, weight, or style. This trick is practically foolproof for creating interesting combinations that work. You've probably heard the saying, opposites attract. Well, the same is true for fonts. Don't be afraid to combine font styles that are different but complementary, like sans serif with serif, short with tall, or decorative with simple. This can be challenging at first, but don't despair. Look to other designs for inspiration, and soon you'll get the hang of it. Maybe you've heard terms like kerning, leading, tracking, and hierarchy. For those with more experience, these concepts are essential for creating professional-looking designs. As a beginner, you don't need to know everything about these terms, just enough to inform your work and help you talk about design with more confidence. Hierarchy is used to guide the reader's eye to whatever is most important. In other words, it shows them where to begin.
Dominant, yes, always a dominant element. You start here and then you move down. Too many people have everything the same size and your eye does not move across the page.
And where to go next, using different levels of emphasis. Establishing hierarchy is simple. Just decide which elements you want the reader to notice first, then make them stand out. High-level items are usually larger, bolder, or different in some way. Remember to keep it simple and stick to just a few complementary styles. Leading is the space between lines of text, also known as line spacing.
Or vertical space.
If you're not sure how much line spacing to use, don't fret. The default is usually fine. The goal is to make your text as comfortable to read as possible. Too much or too little spacing can make things unpleasant for the reader. Tracking is the overall space between characters, sometimes called character spacing. Most programs let you condense or expand this depending on your needs. In some designs, you might adjust your tracking to create a certain artistic effect. It can also help you fix fonts that are poorly spaced to begin with. Kerning is the space between specific characters. Unlike tracking, it varies over the course of the word because each letter fits together differently. Some fonts have what we call bad kerning, making certain letters look improperly spaced. If a font you're using has bad kerning, it's best to cut your losses and choose something else. Well-crafted text can mean the difference between an ordinary project and an extraordinary project, even if you're just getting started with design.
I might flush this one left, so, and push it all over so you don't have those odd spaces in there.
All it takes is an interest in typography, and you'll start to notice more, see more, and be able to do more in your own work.
Think about that for this week.
We hope you
Okay. Overall, type gives you information, organizes information, and like any other part in design, gives you your tone, your personality. Remember, type is art just as much as a graph or a photo. It is art unto itself. Here's bad typography. See, bad spacing, different kerning. This is what we call the ransom note effect. It's just all over the place. Again, all sorts of stuff that doesn't work. So don't do that. More bad stuff. See, different colors, all the same type. Centering is hard to read. It's just bad. You have like two different flyers. Too much type. All the same, bold. It's like it's shouting. Hard to read. Really ugly. Green on green. We'll talk about clashing greens next time. Too busy. Too small. Top part's pretty decent, but it's like you have two different things. You can't read a lot of that. No real differences. You need to have something big on top. Anyway, here's more examples of stuff that aren't the best. Here's good stuff. You notice the good ones are more simple. Big W in the middle, something down here. See, a lot of you did this simply. Here and here, when you're getting busy, you have a nice dominant element here. You notice these very one font, and one big headline, or one different font. And you notice dominant element establishes that visual hierarchy. If you're going to go green, do that. So now I don't love this one because you're lost in, you can't see the type. I would put black type up here. So anyway, lots of stuff to look at. Now, basics of fonts and whatnot, things to think about is measuring type.
Hi, this is David Blattner from InDesignSecrets.com. And have you ever noticed that a lot of designers, especially those who've been doing it for a long time, talk about measurements like picas and points? Well, what the heck is that all about? Why not use inches or millimeters or something, normal? Well, it turns out that there are some really good reasons to learn picas and points. And while it may seem like a crazy system at first, it's really not that hard to learn. Now, the number one reason to use points and picas is that they're just more precise than other measurements. A lot of people like using millimeters, but a point is about a third of a millimeter, so it's really small. In fact, you can fit 72 of them into a single inch, and that makes it great for precision and for dealing with small things like type. In fact, almost all programs use points to measure font sizes and leading, or line spacing. And because leading is defined in points, it's often also helpful to spec other typographic settings in points too, such as margin indents or space before or after paragraphs. And the more you use points, the easier it is to ensure that your spacing is consistent throughout your document. A lot of people say a point is the same size as a pixel on screen, but that is a myth. Screen pixels come in a range of sizes, and these days they're usually way smaller than a single point. But that said, for historical reasons, most images that are called web or screen resolution are set to 72 pixels per inch.
We will get to that when we do photography.
And that is actually the same as a point. So there are 72 points in an inch, or about 3 points in a millimeter, or 30 points in a centimeter, more like 29. So working with points is relatively straightforward. But what about picas? Well, picas are where most designers start to get confused because there are 12 points in a pica, just like there are 12 inches in a foot, right? And that means a pica is about 4 millimeters, or about 1/6 of an inch. It's not really that hard, but it does take some getting used to. Now, when you work with picas and points, you'll see measurements like 3P0, which means 3 picas and no points. So this is the same as half an inch, or 12.7 millimeters. But where it really gets helpful is if you want to add just a little bit. Again, it's all about precision, right? So for example, 3P2, which is 3 picas and 2 points, is a lot easier to type or say than 0.5278 inches or 13.406 millimeters. So I use picas and points for type and for positioning stuff on the page. But for page size and anything big like that, I almost always switch to inches or centimeters. It's just easier to say a letter size page is 8.5 inches wide, or an A4 is 21 centimeters wide.
And by the way, set up on a 3-column page, 1 column, and this is two of the 3. This is 1 of the 3. This is 2 of the 3.
So try using picas and points. You are going to find it annoying for the first few days, but soon you'll understand why designers have, for decades, preferred this measurement system. Well, that's it for this episode.
And here's some more fun stuff. Oops. I guess they changed that one. You didn't need it. And here.
Well, that's it for this episode of InDesign Secrets.
Okay. So there's points and picas.
Hey, I'm Hope Armstrong, a teacher and product designer here at Treehouse. Every day you see typography in action. It's on the menu of that restaurant you love eating at. It's on road signs you drive by, and it's definitely all over that favorite site of yours, which is, let's be honest, Treehouse, of course. All that to say, typography is everywhere, whether people realize it or not. Something so ubiquitous is often taken for granted, but it's really powerful, as designs are often mostly comprised of type.
As you can see, this is 2 hours. You can see
There's
this
so
on
much
your
to
own.
learn.
but here are some things to think about.
Or embodiment of a specific weight,
You got what a font is?
the uppercase. Let's say you have two different typefaces and
Okay.
both are set at
Here's the X height is the height of the letter itself without an ascender or a descender. Again, lots of stuff here. 2 hours worth, you can look at it. And time to have some fun. So, and this is the same one twice. So have some fun with this, look at some of the examples and enjoy. Email me anytime. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good week.